This is Earl Nightingale. We're going to examine together one of the world's greatest works of all time, the Declaration of Independence. And we're going to examine it through the eyes and mind of one of the most interesting people I know, Dr. Eva Brand of St. John's College. You know, the great books of the Western world make up the curriculum at St. John's College at Annapolis and Santa Fe. And Dr. Brand agrees that the Declaration of Independence qualifies as a great, if short, book. Dr. Brand was Phi Beta Kappa when she received her Ph.D. at Yale. She's been a fellow of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens, a teacher of archaeology at Stanford, a member of the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton. Well, if I go on about Dr. Brand, we'll never get to the Declaration of Independence, and I know she's far more interested in our doing that. So let's take a look at one of the most remarkable documents ever produced by humankind, the Declaration of Independence. But let me digress 1 minute more. With this recording, you received a booklet containing the text of the narration you'll be listening to here. Now, Dr. Brand is not a lightweight thinker, and neither is the Declaration a lightweight subject, so the text isn't simple, nor are the ideas it contains. Let me make a suggestion. The first time or two you listen to this recording, read along in the text of the narration. This has a synergistic effect. It also puts arguments, explanations, and other matters into perspective, establishes clarifying relationships, and generally helps one's thinking. Do this a few times, and you'll be saying along with President Lincoln, "I never had a feeling politically that didn't spring from the Declaration of Independence." Under the tall dome of the National Archives building in Washington, there is a sort of small shrine in which is mounted a very large single piece of parchment. Each night, it is rolled down into a massive vault 20 feet beneath the rotunda, and every morning it comes up again. As the steady stream of visitors passes by, everyone, parents and children together, makes an effort to read the words on it. But except for the large heading, "In Congress, July 4th, 1776, and the name of the first signer, the President of the Congress, John Hancock, which is visible if you know where to look for it, most of the text is too faded to be deciphered. Weak as are the letters on it, this piece of parchment, which people come to visit from far and wide, is powerfully at work throughout the country and even throughout the world. It is the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is often referred to as an instrument, especially by Abraham Lincoln, who is its single greatest interpreter. The term instrument is often used of legal documents, and in fact, the Declaration is such a document. For example, Daniel Webster, that great orator, called it the title deed of our American liberties. The very word declaration is a legal term, and means a document in which a plaintiff sets out his complaint, in which his rights are stated and defended. In fact, the whole Declaration has the shape of a legal form, so well drawn up that a contemporary lawyer would be quite able to recognize and name its parts. But there is a larger reason why the Declaration is appropriately called an instrument, which is that it is very much like a tool, powerfully at work in constructing the country and shaping the nation. The signers of the Declaration were well aware of the great things it was to accomplish. Among them was John Adams, the man who later became the second president of the United States. While he was in Philadelphia, he wrote an exuberant letter to his wife Abigail, to whom he liked to give running reports of the political events in which he was taking a part. In it, he said,
"Yesterday, the greatest question was decided, which ever was debated in America, and the greater perhaps never was nor will be decided among men. The second day of July, 1776, ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations, from one end of the continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore."
Now, as everyone knows, the Declaration of Independence was signed not on the 2nd, but on the 4th day of July. Why then does Adams refer to July 2nd as the great day? Well, the reason is that the declaration about which he's writing to Mrs. Adams is only a part of the last paragraph of the great declaration with which we're familiar. That particular paragraph which contains the so-called Resolution of Independence. This is the critical announcement made by the representatives of the United States in General Congress Assembled, as they call themselves in the title of the Declaration, by which they proclaim the momentous decision to break with Great Britain. The text of this resolution, as it was written into the Declaration, announces
that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved.
So it was this resolution which was adopted, as Adams reports to his wife on July 2nd. And it's this resolution of independence which the signers of the Declaration have particularly in mind when they announce at the very end of the document that
For the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
a story is told that just as John Hancock was about to put his large, bold signature under this last paragraph, he turned to the assembly and said,
"We must be unanimous. There must be no pulling different ways. We must all hang together."
Whereupon that old wit Benjamin Franklin replied,
Yes, we must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly we shall all hang separately.
Franklin had every reason to say so, because as soon as they had put their names to the Declaration, these men became rebels in continual danger of execution until 7 years later, when in 1783 Great Britain signed the Treaty of Peace, which ended the Revolutionary War and made the independence of the United States a legal fact. The fact that the Resolution of Independence makes up only a small part at the end of the Declaration of Independence might cause one to ask, whatever is the rest of the long document all about? If independence from England could be declared in a few lines, why is there an enormous page of text to introduce it? The answer to that question points to a crucial truth concerning the Declaration. The best way to see what it is to read the very first paragraph of the document. Here are its familiar words.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
What is so crucially important and distinctive about this beginning is that it commits the American people to an explanation and a justification of their acts. To act in the spirit of the Declaration, therefore, means to share a decent respect to the opinions of mankind, to be ready both to act reasonably and to communicate one's reasons to the world at length. But there's more. The next paragraph announces to the world the philosophical and political principles on which the newly formed nation is to be built. The Founding Fathers wished such a statement of principles to appear before the actual Declaration of Independence from Britain, because they intended the new nation to be founded on and shaped by a theory of human nature and of government. That theory is therefore of vital importance to citizens of this country. The power of the instrument is shown in the fact that, just as its writers intended, it pervades our lives and our speech. For example, when Americans confidently assert their right to this or that, or claim that they live in a free country, they're appealing, whether they know it or not, to their country's first document. The fact that America is a nation which was begun and shaped by a document means that practically everything we say and do, right or wrong, clever or stupid, cannot help but be in some way interesting, simply because, whether we're aware of it or not, there's almost always a philosophical theory behind it which we have, so to speak, in our bones. There was, of course, a practical reason as well as a theoretical one for publishing to the world the reasons for breaking with the English crown. This practical reason is the very one which had been the most solid argument for independence given by Tom Paine in his rather wild and radical but extremely influential pamphlet, Common Sense. Tom Paine had made the following point.
A manifesto ought to be published and dispatched to foreign courts, setting forth the miseries we have endured and the peaceable methods we have ineffectually used for redress, declaring at the same time that not being able any longer to live happily or safely under the cruel disposition of the British court, we had been driven to the necessity of breaking off all connections with her.
He thought, you see, that if such a declaration were to be published, then the United States, instead of forcing the European powers to regard them as rebellious colonies, could face the Europeans as equals and allies against England, and could expect to receive military and financial aid, especially from France and Spain. The men who composed the declaration certainly had Tom Paine's advice in mind. Well, who were these men? The document was actually written in a committee chosen by the Congress, whose chief members were the aging Ben Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson. Adams always took credit for assigning the actual writing to Jefferson because, as Adams said to him, "You can write 10 times better than I can," a generous remark which was probably true. Jefferson's composition, in accordance with Tom Paine's advice to let the world know what America had suffered, consisted largely of a recital of the miseries the colonies had endured under the ruling British king, George III. In fact, 5/8 of the document consists of 28 ringing accusations against George. A reading of just a few of them shows that this list of crimes gave Jefferson a fine chance to pull out all the stops of his powerful rhetoric.